Enrolling in the Academy is really simple. You'll just go to our website, wblinc.org/academy. And when you get here, you'll see our main page and you can click enroll and it'll take you to this form where you're just gonna fill this out. It'll take you about 5 minutes. Once you submit this, you're enrolled in the Academy and you'll receive an email from me so you can pick the classes you'd like to take and join our Academy family. So we're an after-school program rooted in hip hop. So we have a bunch of classes that you may find interesting. You can go right to our website and go to our classes tab and you'll see some of them, from performing arts like hip hop theater, spoken word, hip hop dance, some of our business classes that are like a boss and walk it like I talk it, which would be more arts management and entrepreneur based. And then we also have things like our music classes, MCing and rapping and beat production and DJing. You can go to wblinc.org/academy.
What's going on, everybody? I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Jason Nichols, for the next episode of No New Leaders. This is episode 7. What's going on, Jay?
Not much, man. I'm chilling, maintaining. What's up with you?
You seem like you're not living up to your T-shirt. You're supposed to be Superman.
Oh, I am. I'm in Clark Kent mode until the interview starts, and then I break it out.
I know you're a little surprised. I brought you on screen at the very beginning, which is a little unusual. So I know that we've been enjoying this conversation. We've had multiple guests come on to talk about their work in the community or in organizations with their scholarship. And today is no different. We're going to be joined by Charles R. Barnes Jr., also known as Eclipse. He's a talented lyricist, poetess, ghostwriter, and music educator. He's going to be talking to us a little bit about the work that he does, the music that he's making, and his own approach or understanding or witnessing of leadership. Jay, one of the questions we've been bouncing back and forth about is like the difference between being a leader or a manager or organizer. And I love, like, on episode 1 of the show, you're like, is this all just semantics? Aren't those all really kind of the same thing? And it's like, I mean, maybe in the minds of some people, each of those things is exactly the same or equally as important. But I wonder, are there any kind of insights now that we're in episode 7 that you feel like you've gleaned from talking to other people about their ideas about leadership? Anything that you feel like you've gleaned?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. I think number one, you can be a manager and not a leader, or you can be a leader and not a manager. But sometimes those two things go hand in hand, and they sometimes require the same skills. I also realize, at least from my perspective, that a lot of leaders are hesitant to call themselves leaders. Even managers sometimes are hesitant to call themselves managers, because leader has this connotation, at least from my interpretation of what people are saying, that you are kind of like, dictating to other people in a way in which people are, mindlessly following. And I think that makes a lot of people, particularly in the arts, uncomfortable because, a lot of art deals with, free expression. And you want to feel like you are leading people in the right direction, but that they're ultimately taking the steps on their own. And I think that's actual good leadership. So, that's what I've kind of gleaned from what people have been saying. I think we have some really, really interesting insights. So I would tell anybody to go back and watch some of the earlier episodes and listen to what these people are saying. I'm probably not doing it justice, but that's really the way I've interpreted it.
I think those are great insights. Well, why don't we do this? We've got our guests here. Eclipse, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, bro?
Chilling. So why don't you take a quick couple of minutes to introduce yourselves to our viewers, talk a little bit about your work, and what motivated you to want to join us today?
Hey, so my name is Eclipse. I'm with a company called Dark Squad Entertainment. Talented lyricist. I'm a poet. I'm a ghostwriter. I work with a nonprofit organization. I do work with kids on developing a music therapy program, and I'm just trying to get my stuff out there so people can really learn about the things that I do and what we all about.
So tell us more. About the music that you're making and the work that you're doing through the nonprofit.
All right, so I'll speak on the nonprofit first. Well, how I even got started with the nonprofit. Back in 2019, me and my manager Patrice put together a hip hop literacy program for kids. So it was a program where we put together where I went over like how to use rhyming words and rhyming patterns and things like that with kids, and a lot of it was based on, these are inner city youth. So let's just be real. It's like the hood. So you know how it is in the hood with hood kids. A lot of them are fatherless children, and we speak on leadership. They don't have fathers around to lead them. They go through a lot of things, and I've been through a lot of things myself in the past. So these kids have a lot of anger in them, and they don't know how to deal with it or express it. So we put together a program where it's kind of like, here's a more positive way to get these things out of your system and off of your chest. Instead of going out and doing the things that you feel inside that make you angry, that could lead you into getting into trouble, deal with it in a therapeutic way and release this anger into lyrics or into music. So the hip hop literacy program was a hit, and then I ended up doing it full time and became music director for the nonprofit organization. That also led to me coming out with a solo album in March of this year, because I used to do music like way back in the late 90s, like I stopped in 2004, and I had hung it up for all those years, and then this program with the kids and doing the music therapy program just brought me all the way back into it. So I just dropped my first solo album called What's Done in the Dark Will Come to the Light in March.
With that being said, one of the things I didn't say is where are you located, Eclipse?
I'm in Maryland.
And where is the nonprofit mostly working? In schools and communities?
In communities in Washington, D.C.
In which parts of the city?
In Southwest, I go to Southwest, I go to Southeast. I do like a couple of different communities. So one of them, I started in Wingate, which is in Southwest, but I also do a wider circle. I do another community called, what's the name of this place? Oh, I'm trying to think. I can't remember what they called.
It's cool. It'll come back to you.
Yeah, it'll come back.
So you're working in community spaces and in school spaces. So what exactly was it about where you are in your own career as an artist that made you and Patrice decide to create the nonprofit to be able to do this work, to do education through lyricism?
Well, no, we didn't create the nonprofit. We linked up and partnered with them.
What's the name of the nonprofit?
So What Else?
Okay.
So basically stands for So What Else Can We Do to Help? They didn't have a music program or anything music related at all. So once they saw the program that we put together, they loved it, and the rest is history. I've been doing it for a few years now.
And I feel like you talked about this as being a kind of therapeutic program, not just art for its own sake. But so talk a little about the idea of rap therapy or therapy through lyricism.
Well, I speak on it being therapeutic because, for one, I know for me personally, it's been very therapeutic. I've been through a lot of things in the past. I've taken a lot of loss. My favorite closest uncle was killed at 25 when I was 12 years old. And then after that, I just started losing people to gun violence in the streets back to back. Like, it never stopped. It was just over and over again, whether family members or close friends, people were dying around me all the time. And I grew up feeling really angry. And there were things I wanted to do. Sometimes you get angry, you want revenge, or you want to do something about these things. And I've discovered that music is an outlet for this. Like, I write down the things that I feel without actually taking them into physical action. So that way I'm not ending up in jail, but I'm still getting these things off of my chest, my pain, my passion, my happiness, my joy. Like, all of these things are therapeutic because you need an outlet. So it's kind of like a diary, but you share with other people. It's just expressing and getting those things on the inside out. So That's what I try to get the kids to do, because I know they go through a lot of things. I run into a lot of kids, even kids that say they feel suicidal for these different reasons. Don't commit suicide, but why don't you express why you feel suicide? Don't bottle this up. Get this stuff out of your system. And here's one of the most positive and safer ways that you can do so.
I wonder, have you thought about, and this is a real question, just inspired by what you just said, but have you thought about whether or not, in some instances, it's dangerous for young people to be able to commit what they're saying to writing, especially in this moment where literally prosecutors are listening to popular rappers, commercial rappers, listening to what it is they're writing about and using that as evidence against them, or maybe against things they haven't done, maybe things that they're aware of having happened. But
Right.
this whole idea of using the art that people are making to try to put them on trial. Have you thought about that?
I mean, yeah, I've been noticing a lot of that going on. It's even something that I think about when writing my own stuff. But at the end of the day, I still feel like people got to be able to express their creativity. It's not a crime to express how you feel. At the end of the day, that's all you're really doing. If you're just expressing how you feel about something, there's no crime in that. Now, if you actually have done some of this stuff and this bad stuff, that is a crime, that's a different story. But if you're just releasing some feelings and this is the best way of you getting this stuff out of your system and off of your chest, and it's like your exhale, there's no crime in that.
Now I agree,
So
as long as they're not talking about something they also witnessed. Because if they, like some stuff
Right.
is you're going to trial because you witnessed something that someone
Right.
you're affiliated with does. You were going to say something, Jay?
Yeah. So I actually thank you again for coming on. I actually want to piggyback off of what Mozzie was saying, because I was thinking about this in the context of these young people, for example, in Chicago, where they're angry about maybe the killing of their friends, their friends and their neighbors, excuse me, and they're writing about their feelings, but they're also writing about their anger for whom they blame, and
Right.
it's perpetuating more and more violence. Do you worry about that? Like, oh, I'm angry at this block, I hope that they die, and then it's turning into like actual violence. Do you worry about that at all?
P.S. Before you answer that, Eclipse, just so you're clear, we're not being critical of the
No, we're
approach.
not.
We're just
Oh, I
asking you
get
to, we're just asking if you're thinking about how, because I feel like part of what you're talking about, most rappers talk about the
Right.
idea that what they're writing is therapeutic. We're just asking in the context of working with young people, are
Right.
you also talking to them about, like you just said, if you write about how you feel, that's one thing. If you
Right.
rap about something that you did, that's you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, that's two. Yeah, like that's two different things, though. If you're saying I feel this way and I have these kind of thoughts and these are the reasons I feel this way and what's behind these thoughts, that's one thing. But if you're just talking about, yeah, I shot him, I killed him, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna shoot him up again, that's a whole different story. We just talking about expressing anger and releasing it without actually doing the stuff. So it's the opposite of actually doing it. Just use your lyrics to get your anger out, basically. Write these feelings down and just get them out of your system and just exhale. Because if you hold on to those things, one thing I know is anger bottles up, especially when you don't deal with it. So this is a way of dealing with it without getting yourself into trouble or getting yourself killed.
now, it's a great point. There are whole organizations dedicated to doing what you're talking about. There's one of my favorite groups is based in Oakland called Beats, Rhymes, and Life.
Okay.
They're a rap therapy program. There's also music production therapy programs where people are learning how to make beats as their therapeutic practice. So this idea of getting emotion out through your creativity as a productive process, but also as a regenerative process for you, like the part of getting it out is also allowing yourself to heal. Is powerful.
So
Right.
can I ask a question about, you said that you took a break between 2004 and pretty much the present, and has working with the kids and listening to what they have to say and their experience, has that changed you and the way you approach your own art?
Yeah, and the way it has, because being in the leader perspective, I got to take that into consideration and really think about you know, how I present myself, because I don't want them to get the wrong message. The goal is always to lead them away from the trouble or away from the danger. I'm just trying to give them the kind of outlets that I use to help me. So I definitely do take that into consideration when I'm dealing with them and making sure that they know the difference of this is just you talking about how you feel, but do it in a creative way where it's just an expression of your inner thoughts and feelings, but not in a way that's glorifying bad things. Hold on, what's this up? I can't hear
Live,
you.
you're muted.
There you go. What happened?
I'm messaging your manager Patrice backstage because I want to bring her on screen. You all would be the first two people we've interviewed at the same time, but I want to make sure that she's using Chrome, just because any other web browser has a tendency to chop up the audio.
Right.
So I'm curious, Eclipse, when you decided that this was what you were going to do, was it a matter of like you were contacted and someone was already familiar with your music, or someone already wanted to do a project and they knew you made music and they were like, hey, can you come? Like, what's the genesis of this decision?
Well, we talking about the music therapy program?
Yes.
It was
What's
in
the genesis
reverse.
of you deciding to do this?
It was in reverse, actually. I wasn't trying to come back and do music at all. I pretty much had hung it up. But I got motivated once the music therapy program was a hit, because it was the first time I had even written lyrics in almost 20 years. And the program was just such a hit. When they wanted me to do it full time and become a regular thing, that's how I got to the point where I started thinking, like, you know what? I'm about to put an album out right now. I'm about to get back into doing the music. And another reason I was in a group back in the day when I was doing it before, and a lot of people wanted a solo album from me and they never got it. So to me, it was just like a light bulb going off saying now is the time to give people that solo album that they always wanted and never got. Because I was supposed to do it many years ago and I never ended up doing it. And then here we are. I finally made it happen. But it was inspired from the program, actually. The work I was doing with the kids is what motivated me to get back into music.
That's what's up. We're going to go and bring Patrice on screen with you. What's going on, Patrice?
You muted. Can't hear you.
No,
I was worried about the audio. Okay. So let's see if it's going to work, because it's a little choppy. So Patrice, what's your connection to this project?
well, actually, I at the time was a for the same nonprofit and PhD communication. So I was teaching reading, and I've that many of the children were 8, where I was teaching, that they did not have coding skills. They didn't understand the sounds of the alphabet. You take core, found out great words, said, I'm in trouble here. And 6 times, 7, 8, 9, that this was really something they couldn't do. So I said, I need help with this. And so I contacted Eclipse and I said, you still rap? He laughed at me. He was like, can you better? I said,
Breaking up terribly.
Yeah. Sorry?
I said you're breaking up horribly. Are you using Chrome? Google Chrome?
I believe I am.
It is, but it's actually her Wi-Fi connection. But Patrice, we're actually getting that bit of information was super helpful. I'm gonna go ahead and send you back screen. It might, I'm not sure, because I see your bars are down at 2 when ours are up at 5. So it's probably just your Wi-Fi connection. But this is super helpful to know that you are a part of the nonprofit teaching literacy, and you reached out to Eclipse to be able to make an even more in-depth connection beyond just or just a different way to approach literacy and how to apply it. So, because Eclipse, this is a show about leadership. I wonder, what are the things that you've learned working with Patrice, working in this nonprofit, putting out your first, preparing to put out your first solo album, what are the things you've learned along the way about yourself as a driving force for your own creative expression?
I mean, I think for me, I can't really say it's things that I've learned because this always just been who I am. It's been a piece of me. I never really been the type to follow what everybody else is doing. I've always done my own thing. People that know me, they know that I'm just different in so many areas when it comes to things, even like with my music. Like, I don't really do things the way everybody else does them. I'm very different as far as, like, if you listen to a lot of my lyrics, some of them might, to a degree, not too much, but to a degree, always sound like I'm trying to school you or I'm giving you knowledge. So that's like a leader's perspective because I'm telling you, these are the bad things right here. Stay away from this for this reason or that reason. And these are going to be the results and the consequences if you don't listen to what I'm saying. So even like when I write from the perspective of trying to lead people away from danger and people away from potential trouble. I got a song called Trust and Betrayal where I rap about the drug game. And most people, when they rap about the drug game, they glorify it and you see them flashing the money and the cars and all this other stuff. I approach it from the other side, like, yeah, the money's fast, but look at all these bad things that come with this package. Is it really worth the risk?
Eclipse, where are you from? Because you definitely don't have a DC accent. I'm getting real Ice Cube vibes from you. So where are you from originally?
I'm from DC originally.
Really?
Really? Uptown.
Yeah, he sounds like it to me. I will say I get Cujo Goody vibes. You know, I see more Cujo, but I hear Ice Cube in the voice. I hear what you're saying.
So how do you, out of curiosity, because you're probably one of the first people we brought on who actually describes himself as a leader. How do you, as an artist, particularly working with young people, walk the line between, being motivational or inspirational and being preachy? Like, is there a line for you as a creative? Or you cool with being a preacher?
I mean, I don't necessarily want to be a preacher to them. Like, I want to be more so somebody that I want to be real with them always. I want them to feel like, I don't never want them to feel like I'm judging them for anything. I want them to feel like you can talk to me about anything. I understand how you feel. I've actually been there. We can relate to each other. You know what I'm saying? So don't ever feel like you have to keep this from me or you can't really express this to me because this is a no judgment zone. I've been through what you've been through and even probably worse. I will understand these things better than some of the other people you may approach with it or even keep it from.
So along those lines, I wonder what or who would you say is responsible for making you the man that you are, in terms of what books did you read, or what leaders in your life, or the role that family or people in your community, who are the people that help to shape your own understanding and commitment to being an example or a resource to young people in your life or community?
That's not really something that I could give credit to as far as a person goes, because I didn't have leadership growing up. Like, my father was an alcoholic. I had a father who, was heavy on substance abuse. So I didn't have a father to lead and guide me. It came from just personal experience for me. The way my life was just shaping up, it was things that I learned from the consequences of some of my actions or the things that I seen around me. It was just life experience that kind of shaped me into who I am today.
But what's an example of that, right? So like, if it wasn't a father, was it an uncle? Was it a big homie in the neighborhood? Like, who are the people?
One uncle that would have the one uncle that was that person was taken away from me when I was 12. That's the uncle I spoke of earlier that got killed when I was 12 years old. I was the closest to him. He was like a father figure to me. He took the place of my father. Even though my father lived in the same house as me, my uncle was more like a father figure to me, but I only had 12 years worth of experience with him. He got killed.
Well, then was it women that helped? Because many women play leadership roles, especially in school environments or community organizations. I'm just saying, like, all of us are shaped by experience, like you're saying. But if you think back over your life, like, who are those people? Are they books? Are they films? Like, where does your point of view come from? I got his life experience, but
Right.
can you name people?
No, I honestly can't. It's nobody that I can pinpoint to say this person is responsible for this or these things came from that person. It literally was 100% just my life experiences. I always have had the mindset that experience makes you smarter. Things that you experience that are bad or that go well, do you keep repeating those things and keep getting the same results, or do you learn from that mistake and capitalize and move better forward?
Gotcha. Experience is the best teacher. You about to say something, Jay?
No, well, I guess, I would ask, do you think that that things would have been easier for you if you had leadership, if you had that kind of influence on you, rather than having to do it trial and error?
Yeah, I think I definitely would have. It would have been a lot better if I had leadership. Like, I grew up, like, in a sense, I was considered the man of my house as a kid. My father was there, but my family looked to me as being the man of the house. My father was absent even in his presence, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So people looked past him when it came to my house, and they came to me. I'm just a teenager.
So, Eclipse, along those lines, like, maybe take us back to when you first started writing, or when you started rhyming. Was that, how old were you when you first started making music?
Somewhere between 8 and 10 years old.
And do you remember what made you get started?
Now, this, I can definitely give credit to the same person. That would be my father. My father was a musician. He was in the band. He used to play the drums and he used to sing. So when I was young, my father used to always take me to, like, his gigs, the club, wherever he's performing at. And back then, I just used to do, like, little dancing. It was Michael Jackson back then. My father would tell me dance like Michael Jackson for people. I was really good at it, so they would start throwing me money. So I went home with a lot of cash, and I did a talent show at school. And once they saw me in action, they completely rewritten the talent show and made me the star of it. So as I got a little older, my father formed a rap group even back then with me, my cousin, and two of my best friends at the time. And both of them are also dead. They both were killed as well. But he started us in a group back then. So that's how I started writing my own rhymes. This was back between, like, the ages of 8 and 10.
And so from 8 to 10, that's when you got started. Then you made music up until, I think you said 10 years ago?
Well, I didn't make it straight through, like, from ages 8 to 10, but that's when I started writing. But it was kind of just something I was doing under my father's management. Then I got a little older and kind of left it alone. I would write little stuff here and there, but not really, like, trying to take it seriously, like trying to do something with it as a career. That wasn't until, like, 1998, where I was trying to get into music, and my brother, kept telling him, like, I'm really good with rapping. I just need some music. I need somebody that can make me some beats. And he knew a guy, and he brought him to the house and introduced me to him, along with another guy that he knew that was really good at rapping. So the guy's beats were fire, and me and the other guy ended up forming a group with another guy, and we were in a group called Dark Alley. And we actually became legendary in this era. Anybody who know about us will tell you.
And how long have you and Patrice been working with the nonprofit?
Since 2019.
So, excuse me. So in the last 3 years, what are some of the impacts that you've seen that your programming, her literacy programming, and your lyricism programming, what are some of the differences you've seen in the lives of the young people that you work with?
We both have just seen like some of the kids like really just start to open up about stuff. Sometimes kids are quiet and you can't get them to say much or nothing. They sit there and they kind of to themselves. Even when you're trying to talk to them, they don't really say much back. But I think through growth, they develop the comfort at some point to where they start to open up about a lot of things they never would speak of before. So they develop the trust, like I was talking about earlier, that made them feel that they can trust me, that I'm relatable to them, and it's okay because there's no judgment. I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to look at you funny, that I can tell you what's going on and get these things out of my system.
So with that being said, because this is a show about leadership, I wonder how. Two things. One, what does it mean to be a leader? And then two, who are leaders that you currently follow? However you define that.
I would define what it means to be a leader. Literally, the word lead. If you're the front runner and you're trying to guide the people behind you, no matter what it is you do, then I think that does make you a leader. With leadership comes guidance. Knowledge comes with leadership. So if I'm trying to lead you away from trouble, even leadership can lead people into trouble. If people are going to follow your lead, whether it's bad or good, it's a matter of people being behind you and following your movement or your direction or which way you're trying to go with things.
And then that second question, whose leadership are you currently following, if anybody's?
Right now, if I would say whose leadership am I following, that would be Patrice.
And you say that in part because she's your manager, right?
Best friend and manager. Like I have experience with her where listening to her and trusting in her has never led me nowhere but in a positive place or places of good. So she's definitely the leader in my life right now that I trust in wholeheartedly. Sometimes, I have to trust in her blindly. I don't always understand her methods and what she's talking about or why, but I've learned to just listen and follow her lead regardless, and then I'll see the outcome later. Sometimes I might even question it real quick, like, that doesn't make sense to me. Why are we doing this? And she's like, just do it. Just trust me. And later, I'm saying, okay, now see what you was doing. You were right. But it's always a positive, good result.
So I see, like, it seems to me like leadership for you depends upon trust. And I'm wondering, how do you build up that trust with the students that you work with, so that they trust you the way that you trust Patrice?
Right. Well, I would say this. I think leadership has to be built on trust, because why would you just follow behind what people were doing if they haven't earned your trust? And I think to get that trust, you have to be consistent. You have to be able to consistently teach the person whose trust that you're trying to earn. Just like I spoke of with Patrice earlier, it was a consistency of every time I do listen to you, you lead me to something positive. There's a positive result, or it leads to a good place. So that trust was built through the consistency. And it's the same thing like with the kids. They start one way with me or even with us, and then over time, the trust was built because they saw consistency in us, what made them open up and start to feel more free with us.
So as an MC myself, I know that there was a transition between writing your early raps and then finding your voice, where it was like you started to express yourself through your music rather than emulating kind of the styles that you heard.
Right.
When do you think that transition happened for you, where you went from, hey, I'm just, writing cool raps, to I'm really expressing what's on my mind and what's in my heart?
That happened for me back when I was in the group, in the group Dark Alley that I spoke of. Now, that first album, I did express like some of my pain and some of the stuff, but that album was more so focused on anger. So we came out with another album after that, and I think I transitioned to translating my pain into songs even more. But it really skyrocketed to a whole nother level because now that I'm doing this 20 something years later, my knowledge is completely different. So some of the stuff that you hear on my album, you can hear and feel the pain in my voice and just tell that it's real. So I speak about a lot of stuff just from collectively my experiences and how these things make me feel. I speak on sadness. I speak on pain. I speak on anger. I speak on anxiety. Like it's all real stuff. So it's very authentic. So it naturally just comes out sounding authentic because it's so real. There's nothing fake about it.
Yeah, it looks like we have some examples of your lyrics here.
What's that? Yeah, that's one of my hooks that's actually the hook that I wrote for the last song on my album called Eyes of a Desperate Man. That song is actually a song about my true life story. It's a 10-minute song, but I'm telling my life story from birth all the way up to the present and all of the things that I've been through that have hurt me. And it's called Eyes of a Desperate Man because it's of different perspectives of someone in a situation where they're looking through desperate eyes according to the situation that they were in. It's speaking of myself, but it's also speaking of the people that I mentioned in these stories.
You want to spit them? You want to spit this? You want to spit this verse?
All right, so the hook for this verse is because you ain't been where I've been. You ain't seen what I've seen. You ain't walked in my shoes, have no idea what I mean. You ain't built for my blues, nor the things in between, in the eyes of a desperate man. So when I think of all the things that I've been through, thinking of all the wakes and cemeteries I've been to, the bloodshed of friends, relatives that I'm kin to, how could you ever understand the eyes of a desperate man?
Yeah, I feel like I wonder, one of the things that I've learned over the last 20 years living in and working with young people in DC is maybe not disproportionate to other major cities, but disproportionate to other young people.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of young people that have been to way more funerals than me.
Right.
I feel like this challenge of dealing with trauma, with violence, with death at an early age. Like I remember my very first day. When we first started our program, we started at the Bennett Park Recreation Center in Southeast. And I remember on my very first day, the very first child I met, his name was Trayvon. And he walked into the recreation center where we were, and he said his first words to me were not "hello, who are you?" or "welcome to my neighborhood." It was "my brother just got killed." His first words to a total stranger was telling me that one of the people that was closest to him on the planet was now gone.
Right.
I wonder how your lived experiences equip you to not just have empathy to challenges that young people go through, but also to have literally, in some instances, walked in the same shoes or had some of the same challenges, or been a witness to other people having those same challenges, like growing up in DC.
Right.
How do you feel like that equips you in a way that's unique to many of the adults in their lives? Like one of the things about DC is a lot of people who work with young people don't come from DC. They come from other places and move here, whether it's for college or to get a job. But there's not a lot of people who grew up in DC working with young people in DC.
Right. I think I don't know like what makes me unique to it. I think it's just I feel like I know for a fact I've just been in a situation where I've cheated death so many times. So I took heed to the wake-up calls. Been in so many situations where I'm still here when I could have been killed myself, or I could have ended up in jail many times myself. It was a matter of me really taking heed to these experiences and taking what I learned from them and just being much smarter. I'm able to really speak on a lot of things when it comes to the kids, because it's like I can spot dangers from a mile away. You can tell me the least amount of what's going on, and I could be able to tell you, stay away from that for this reason, or let me tell you this story. This is why this is not a good idea.
That's a great point. I wonder, based on the work you're doing, whether or not there are principles of leadership that guide you, like these ideas, like big ideas that you work to embody through your effort. Your own principles of leadership. And they don't have to be things that like literally are written down, but when you think about your own approach to education, to creativity, to engaging young people, you talked about the things you appreciate in Patrice as a leader.
Right.
I wonder, what are some of the things that you feel like through your own efforts you embody as a leader?
I don't really
Follow
know.
my question?
Yeah. Now I follow it. I'm just thinking about it. I can't really say. I just know that.
I can tell you one that I've heard you say that without saying it. One is that it's never too late to pursue something, that you can put something down and come back and pick it up, that everything that you imagine today doesn't have to be done today. So that, to me, that would be one example of what I see embodied in the work that you do. Two, I see a spirit of collaboration. So if Patrice was working on literacy and thought that taking basic concepts of literacy around recognition, around repetition, etc., and seeing the power in lyricism to make it more relevant. So this idea that education should be relevant to the people participating in it will probably be another thing that I would say is embodied in your practice. But can you think of examples when you just think about like what some of the things you do mean in a bigger context? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Patrice, you can feel free to drop something in the chat about what you feel like is embodied in the work that you're doing.
I mean, well, one thing that I do with the kids is I work with them a lot just with words alone. Sometimes it's not even just about rap all the time or music all the time. Sometimes I might just make up contests and games. So, as Patrice mentioned earlier, a lot of these kids they can't read very well. So I come up with little things, little competitions that have to do with words and use rhyming words or whatever, that's actually teaching them how to read and spell a lot of these words that they may be struggling with. So that would be one of the things right there. Like sometimes I've made them do little games where I would do a list of rhyming words, but I would leave the letters blank. I would write one word and then I would write like 5 more words that rhyme with that word, but I would leave the letters blank and try to make them guess what these words are. A lot of times they couldn't guess because they didn't even know how to read them or know how to spell this stuff, but they learned it that day moving forward just from the activity that I came up with.
So it sounds like at a baseline level, part of what's embedded in your work is the importance of literacy, that's bigger than rap. Patrice had an answer. She said that truth, loyalty, and humility are all embedded in your work, and that you see and seek to give people what you wish had been woven into you. And those are wonderful leadership principles or qualities. I think that these are great points. And so thinking about the role, I also heard you say that education should be fun, that it could actually be competitive, that part of the responsibility of an educator or a leader is to recognize when people need something, how to get it to them, or how to help them get it for themselves. So these are all great ideas and principles that we're really excited to hear are embedded in your work. Also, and a lot of times, like I'm asking like, what does this mean? And I know sometimes you're so busy doing it, you're not necessarily thinking about necessarily what it means. But and that's natural because it's kind of like Jason and I have a friend who always used to quote a scholar named McLuhan. He said, "I don't know who discovered the ocean, but it probably wasn't the fish." Sometimes you can be so close to a thing you don't see it. You know, like you're thinking about how do I reach these kids? Not like you're not writing a paper about it. You're just trying to make sure that the difference that you exist to make is being made.
Right.
So that's powerful.
And another thing too is I noticed that these kids become more confident. A lot of times they may be hesitant to participate because they don't know certain things and they're worried about if people are going to make fun of them or if they laugh at them. But I help them get that confidence once they start to trust me. I help them build that confidence in themselves because they start to participate a lot more, and then they even end up realizing they end up becoming some of the biggest participators because they're having so much fun and enjoying learning these things that I'm teaching them at the same time. And now they're building a confidence within themselves that they didn't even have before as well.
Now, that's a great point. This idea that you can have in a community-based or a school-based setting in your classroom an impact on how they act in all the rest of the classroom, because now they have more. They see themselves differently.
Right.
So it seems like another principle would be helping a young person to self-actualize, to see their own potential and their already existing gifts. Jay, can you speak to that? Jason's a university professor at the University of Maryland. So can you speak to some of the things you've witnessed? I know you're working with, some of the best students in the country in terms of GPA, but things you witness as a leader in a classroom space.
Yeah, I mean, I witness similar things. We have a lot of students who sometimes I think in our secondary schools, a lot of times students are told, just to mimic what or regurgitate what they're told. And when you're teaching critical thinking, this is an opportunity for people like me to come along and say, look, your thoughts actually matter. What were your thoughts about the reading? Not, tell me the date and the words that were said that you're probably going to forget at some point. Critically think about what you're actually reading, about what we're actually discussing. And that causes a lot of people to come out of their shell, and a lot of people who think that they're just supposed to, follow directions, to actually start to think for themselves. And I think in a lot of cases that breeds people who become entrepreneurs, people who think for themselves. That's why I think, people who came out of African American studies at the University of Maryland, start great nonprofits in Washington, D.C., because they get those kind of critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Jay, to that point, though, I mean, one of the things I did find a lot in college, 20 years ago, was the students that would often be the most outspoken usually were students of color. Granted, that most of my classes, they stood out to me because they weren't necessarily the majority.
Right.
But they also brought a different life experience to that classroom. That wasn't just what they read in the book. It was also how what they were reading applied to their lives or their family or their community. That it wasn't math, for lack of a better description. It wasn't abstract. It was really, these are my ancestors. This is my community. This is a place that I've visited. And so I wonder, along those lines, Eclipse, how is it that you and Patrice are not just building the skills, but also making it relevant to their lives, useful?
That's a good question.
And sometimes I'll ask questions, be like, "We still working towards that," and that's a legit answer.
Right.
You're 3 years in, so it's all good.
I'm just I don't know. I guess it's, I don't know. I can't really say at this moment.
Gotcha. Well, I definitely want to thank you for taking time to join me and Jay. I want to thank Patrice for joining us backstage. And it looks like your Wi-Fi connection is finally good. So let's see if we can get you. Let's see, Patrice, we got you. You got a good Wi-Fi connection. Probably muted though.
All right, probably a good two, but we'll try. So, one of the things that we do is we weave into the program real life principles. And just as a quick example, I wear oxygen. I have sickle cell disease, so I have had health problems since birth, and that breeds a lot of social isolation, hospitalizations, and being pulled in and out of school. So one of the things that I struggled with as a child, teenager, young woman was who I was, because labels were being placed upon me. You know, sick. She's not here. I absorb those things. So some of the things that we do, we take from the real life experience of Eclipse and of myself. And so we've had exercises on everything. We had a very simple exercise on, we went around asking them, who are you? And they literally just looked at us like this, like they didn't understand the question. They didn't know how to answer it. Some of them said, well, I'd like to go over my grandma's house. And I said, okay, well, that's good. And so we changed the dynamic. So he and we went over to the corner and we said, okay, well, we're on the playground and we see you, Stanley, and we talking about you. And so we see you over there. So when we say, oh man, wait, there goes Stanley. And Charles says, well, Eclipse's real name is Charles. Charles says, see who? And I said, you don't know Stanley. Stanley is, and then we pivoted it back to the room. What are the next three things that you want us to say? And so since we turned it into like a little skit and we're on the playground, we're like, we're talking about you anyway. And if you don't tell us who you are, we're going to make something up and we're probably going to get it wrong. And so then we saw a light bulb. It still took them a lot of processing. And I think we worked on this exercise for weeks. But by the end of those weeks, they could tell us who they were. And I said, if you don't tell us who you are, other people will. And they will what? And they unanimously said they'll get it wrong. So we try to, because the didn't have that manly leadership, because I did have two parents, but I struggled with my own identity because of the words that a child with health problems brings. And so we try to give the thing in the world that we needed and wish that we had, we try to give that back to them. We've held rap seminars with money management. We brought Monopoly money in. He and I went to the store and spent about a good $40 on everything from honey buns to Sour Patch Kids to the fiery Cheetos, things that we knew that they liked. And then we had them to make sentences, interrogative, declarative, exclamatory. And so whoever made the most sentences, we awarded with the Monopoly money, and they got to buy stuff from the store. But we told them, if you don't add it up right, we're not giving you the change. And if you don't have enough money, you lose your turn. So there was math in it. There was, deductive reasoning. And then there was also the literacy part. So we mixed it up to try to give them life skills. Sometimes we have them come to the front and present. And then we also just talk to them. And I think that's what makes it work, because we show up consistently, but we also, as it is our responsibility to do as adults, those life components that are critical to their survival internally and externally.
These are all great points. I just want to thank both of you for the important work you're doing and the work you're doing in the lives of young people, because ultimately that impacts their homes and their communities, impacts all of us, that all of us should be invested in the development of young people and in providing resources. I think what is also really interesting is sometimes people think it really takes a lot. And I don't know that it takes a lot as much as it takes the right intentions and a will to just continue to reimagine how to reach young people. And the reason why I say that is because most young people who go to school in the United States of America can go an entire day, or not most, many young people can go an entire day and never have anyone ask them, who are you? Or even how are you? They're just it's really more, where are you supposed to be? This idea of policing the bodies and the minds of young people, as opposed to liberating them, as opposed to helping them see connections between what they're interested in and what they need to learn in a school-based setting. So I want to thank you both for joining us. Do you want to give out socials for where people can find out about the nonprofit, or even about each of you as individuals?
Absolutely.
Go ahead,
Follow
please.
us at Dark Squad Entertainment on Instagram. We also have a new channel where we are starting to do podcasting, and that has Eclipse live with the children and different lessons that he's made up. He also has worked with the senior citizens population that amazingly loved him as well. And they were like, we don't even listen to hip hop, but they felt his music. So Dark Squad Entertainment on IG. You can find us at Eclipse of Dark Squad Entertainment. But if you put in Dark Squad Entertainment in YouTube, will come up. And then also, please reach out to Dark Squad Entertainment at Gmail.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. It's most appreciated. Continue to do the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jane. So, lessons to walk away with. I think I kind of walk away. What's funny is on one of the first show, I think it might have been the first show, you described yourself as a leader because of the work you did in classrooms, and I was like, "You ain't no leader. What are you talking about?" And I think that both Eclipse and Patrice really are examples of how in alternative classroom spaces or even traditional classroom spaces, it takes the effort of an educator to lead in a way that is relevant, that is empowering, that is connected. You gonna say something?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that I thought was so interesting about what Eclipse was saying was not only his leadership within the classroom, but was saying that he felt that he was missing leadership in his home. So one of the things that, you and I kind of had a little discussion about was whether as a husband and father, whether I can call that leadership within my home, because it's, I guess, a small space. And I think one of the things that, at least from his perspective, was that leadership within the home was really important, and that was something that he was missing.
Well, but also something that was thrust on him at a young age. The idea
Right.
that people saw him as a leader at an age when most people wouldn't be thinking of a young person as a leader, which is also really important. Like, I think sometimes when we talk about leadership, we just assume we're talking about adults, but young people play leadership roles all the time. I remember leaders in my neighborhood when I was a kid who I followed. I didn't necessarily think about myself as a follower, or even them as a leader, but if they were like, "Yo, we're meeting at the court to play at this time," I didn't say, "Who gonna be?" I'd be like, "Oh, yep, let's go," like because that person called and I responded. So thinking about all the different kinds of leadership, and Eclipse even says something that you normally say, that just because like all leaders aren't good, you can be a good leader at doing bad things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So these are all things that are super relevant, especially for people who are thinking about themselves. I love the fact that Patrice talked about stigmas connected to ability status or medical status, and at the same time battling those stigmas as a young person, being recognized as a leader in her adult life, and doing things that leaders do, blazing trails, thinking innovatively, creating ways for young people to not be left behind because of challenges connected to literacy, recognizing that literacy is the foundation of everything within society, whether that is schooling or employment, etc.
Yeah, let me just say one thing I thought was dope about that interview was Eclipse obviously was saying that he had some experience in the streets. He comes across as for lack of a better term, like a tough guy, but he is willing to follow and take leadership, not only from a woman, but a woman with physical health challenges. And I think that's important. You know what I mean? To recognize the talent, recognize leadership, and being willing to fall in line behind a leader, even if they don't necessarily fulfill what society, excuse me, what society says a leader looks like. So I thought that was really dope. And in order to be a good leader, you have to learn how to be a good follower. And I think he was living that out. And I thought that was something that was, implicitly kind of special about that interview.
No doubt. Well, Jay, I really appreciate you making time to be here. I'm super excited that Eclipse and Patrice reached out to us about this interview and are telling us about the amazing work they're doing right here in Washington, D.C. Definitely follow them. Definitely follow up with them. And
Squad
please
Entertainment.
tune in. Next time, we're going to be doing this again every Sunday from 4:15 till 5:15 here on Words, Beats, and Lights channels of YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, etc. RBI just tuned in, was like, I just got here. It was dope closing remarks. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate y'all joining us. All right. My name is Mazi Mutafa. Please follow us, like this video clip, share it with people who you think need to see it, and join us next Sunday. Peace, y'all.
God bless the cipher, the rotation. God bless the beatboxer's lungs, amen for breath control, the smiles that pry open faces when flow goes unbroken, and the smoke. To stories you can see, to coming in on the one.